Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about what to do after the Feudal Age in Age of Empires 2. Now many might know what to do from Dark Age and the start of the game all the way up to Feudal Age, and you might even know exactly what to do in Feudal Age and how to develop until Castle Age. But in my opinion, the game tends to get really complicated after this point. When you're on the way up to Castle Age and actually in Castle Age, you get so many more options bombarded at you, and it could be really hard to determine what to do and where to go from there. For example, if someone's struggling with the early game, I always recommend them to learn about the Dark Age because it's the most simple portion of Age of Empires. And then I also recommend learning a build order to help you get through Feudal Age in an optimal fashion. However, when it comes to going through Castle Age and leading your way up until Imperial Age and how to expand, it gets a lot more tricky, and there's kind of not really a recipe out there to help you guys out. So I'm making this video in order to guide you through all of the different options we have and to kind of guide your decision making as well and help you make your own decisions in your own games based on some of these factors. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right in and take a look at some of the things I have presented for you guys today. Alright, so the immediate steps to do right after Feudal Age are as follows. Picture the scenario where you go through Dark Age and Feudal Age and you land yourself in Castle Age. Normally you have a little bit of army, you have a good amount of villagers, and you're looking for a direction to take your game in. The immediate steps to do upon hitting Castle Age are to pick up any economy upgrades you might want immediately. Economy upgrades are great because they scale as the game goes on. The earlier you pick them up, the more time you can get your benefits from them. It's as simple as that. So pick up any economy upgrades from Castle Age that we might want to grab immediately, and the common answer is at least bowsaw, sometimes a couple more upgrades if you want. And then the next step is to figure out your main army composition in Castle Age. When you get to Castle Age, you get so many different options when it comes to military that are available to you suddenly. You can get tech for your archer or skirmishers, so you can go crossbow, you can go elite skirmisher, or you can even go for your cavalry archer from the archer range. And then if you want a cavalry unit, you can go for a light cav and upgrade your scouts in Feudal, or you can go for the all-powerful knight line, and that's going to be quite strong right out the gate in Castle Age. You also have options like unique units that come to mind, and siege that becomes available, monastery, more tech from the university. So all of a sudden there is a ton of options for your army, and it's essential that you figure out your early castle army composition. Now in this particular moment, you don't need to figure out the entire composition that you want to go for throughout the entire game. All you need to figure out is what you want to prioritize right away. Keep in mind, you don't have a very big economy at this point. You might have a lot of resources left over as you're upping from Feudal Age to Castle Age. There's not a lot being done, and so usually you tend to stockpile a little bit of resources, and this is the bank that we use to then figure out our early composition. But like I said, you don't have to figure out every single unit you're going to use throughout the entire game. Just figure out what you want to prioritize and what makes the most sense to have on the field right away. Something like crossbows with a couple knights to defend yourself against skirms is a very popular composition. Something like knights plus siege or plus monks is another good composition, and the list goes on and on. Those are just a couple examples. Now the next thing you want to decide, and this is quite shortly after you've figured out your army composition and picked up your eco upgrades, you have to decide right away if you want to supplement your army with utility or tech, or if you want to develop your economy. Now what I mean by this is you can always supplement your mainline units, whether it's the cavalry, the archers, with utility like monks, siege, and extra tech from the university. And I've already mentioned this a little bit earlier, but let's talk about it a little bit more now. The tech that you get available in Castle Age is quite strong. Ballistics from the university for your archer units is a game changer. You can also pick up some siege to support your knights and potentially launch a push in early castle, or you can go for a few monks which help on defense, help healing your units, and help picking up relics. Each of these things changes the game and is a huge factor on the position of the game. However, they're all somewhat expensive. They're not like that expensive where it's like unachievable in early Castle Age. You can definitely quickly pick one of these options up to support your mainline units, but by doing so you're delaying the development of your economy. So here it's really a pros and cons, and it depends on your playstyle and the kind of game you want to play, plus maybe the civ matchup and the kind of strategy you want to go for. But generally speaking, going for utility or going for economy development are both good options. And to be honest, which one you pick first matters quite a bit, but in the end you tend to get both anyways. For example, if I open the game by going with knights in castle and I decide I need the utility that monks present for my knights, it's essential, I heal them up, I'll gather some relic and convert enemy units. This is great, but it's not like I don't want to develop my economy at all. So I'll start by getting the monastery, and then shortly after, I'll add 1 or 2 more town centers to continue developing my economy. It's not like you have to pick one or the other, it's just which one you want first. It might seem like a no-brainer that always getting the utility first is the way to go, because then you get to make use of that utility for longer periods of time, but it's also quite obvious that if you delay your economy development, you obviously get a slower boom going, so less villagers means less resources over time, and so your opponent can pull ahead quickly if you tech into the utility and you don't make good enough use of it, and so he's going to have more villagers than you even if you develop your economy shortly after. And so in this case, you have to decide which one you want first, and if you want the economy or the utility right away. But usually, like I said, you get to do both in every single game. Once you decided this kind of setup, you then have to decide if you want to play for the long game or if you want to try to get a lead ASAP. Now, you don't have to actually go for the all-in if you want to get a small lead. Sometimes just going for a position on the map like a forward hill with a siege workshop and launching a push on your opponent to keep him at bay and gain control of the map for yourself is a pretty good strategy. However, sometimes going for that push or that aggression early on and once again delaying your development, it can have a lot of benefits to you and also could backfire if you delay your development too much. So this is the next decision you make after deciding if you want to go for economy or utility. Normally, if you go for economy, you're basically telling your opponent, I want to play for a late game and I want to just put myself in the best position going towards that late game. But if you go for the utility approach, you're telling your opponent, I'm looking to take advantage of this tech that I just got or of this monastery or siege workshop that I've invested in, and I'm looking to gain an advantage right now. It's really important to have this thought process, not just for yourself, but also to be able to read what your opponent's going for. If I get to Castle at the same time as my opponent and I notice him dropping 2 town centers right away, I'm thinking to myself, he wants to play for the late game. He probably doesn't have the resources to also go for this utility. So if I go for a utility like a siege workshop, I'm then thinking to myself, let's make this forward, because if I'm making my utility forward, I have more time to take advantage of the siege workshop and pressure the guy who wants to get the late game. If we both do the same approach, we both go for utility, and I see him dropping a university at home, I probably say, you know what, maybe it's not the best for me to go for a forward siege workshop because I know he's going to have really strong archers on the field with ballistics, or maybe cavalry archers with ballistics, and that's a very hard composition to fight, and I might not want to risk going forward with my siege workshop. So in that case, I might decide to make it at home instead. So as you can see, seeing what your opponent goes for helps you make decisions for your own game, and it's really important to understand what your opponent is trying to do with the kind of choices he makes, and the same goes for yourself as well. Alright, now that we've talked about early Castle Age decision making, it's important to take a look at the next steps and how to go from here. The next thing to think about is some mild base expansion. I'm not talking about going out to the sides of the map and taking some of the extra resources available, or even trying to snag some of your opponent's resources to gain an advantage that way. Usually those expansions are way too risky and not necessary at this point. I'm talking about some smaller expansions around your base just to kind of secure a little bit more ground. For example, your secondary golds and stones usually tend to be a little bit further out compared to your initial feudal age base, and so sometimes deleting a few walls, getting some town centers a little bit further out but still rather close to your city is a great way to expand while also not taking too many risks. Think of it logically. As you go through Castle Age, you get more villagers, which means you need more space to farm, more space to make houses and other essential buildings, and so naturally you need more space on the map. But we have to go about grabbing that space a little bit systematically and a little bit strategic. You can't just randomly grab space anywhere on the map. If your opponent is playing the game as well, which I sure hope they are, they might try to deny some of the space that you're trying to get access to. So it's important to take the space that's close to us, but at the same time, we don't want to keep ourselves too cramped up. You need to find that middle ground between safe space to take and going out way too far. The more games you play, the more this will become natural for you, but the way to think of it right now is just opening up those walls a little bit, claiming a bit more ground, and as your villas pile up, as you need more buildings, do the same thing. Get a little bit more ground and continue to take more and more ground to secure wood, gold, stone, whatever it is in your immediate surroundings. Alright, now going on into late Castle Age. This is where you're starting to get up to close to 100 pop, close to 70 or 80 villagers, and so now your resources tend to really start piling up. And this is when it becomes quite hard to play the game, because if you just sit on resources in your stockpile, as you know who watch my videos, that is inefficient. The resources in your stockpile do nothing, and so we're looking for a way to spend those resources, but we have to do it in a smart way. We can't just waste the resources and spend them on nonsense. And so at this point, we're gonna have to start making some of the really big decisions for our game. Do we try to save up for Imperial Age with these excess resources that have been built up, or do we try to go for a prolonged Castle Age so that we can get more expansion going and start to secure the really crucial parts of the map, like the hills in the middle, some of the extra resources on the side, for example, or even start launching bigger attacks on our opponents with the resources we're starting to stockpile? In my opinion, this is the biggest decision to make in Castle Age, whether to go for a faster imp or whether to go for an extended Castle Age. It's really a small decision that has so much impact on the game. I'll give you guys a couple quick tips. Like for example, if you're an archer civ, typically speaking, you want to go for a faster imp because your main army is rather cheap. It doesn't take that many resources to field Arbalest and switch to maybe some Halb or some light cav. And so what you're mainly interested in is just the technology. Like how big your upgrade is so crucial. Arbalest upgrade, chemistry is really crucial. Bracer's huge. Those tech that come with Imperial Age are just so crucial for archer civs that generally speaking, archer civs want to go for a faster imp. Whereas for cavalry, if you want to play towards like Paladin or towards heavy siege or even towards a big unique unit plus something else composition, that generally speaking takes more resources. And so in that case, rushing Imperial Age doesn't really make that much sense because yes, you get some extra tech, but you can't really afford to get the upgrades that your units need, and you can't really afford to get the upgrades while also making the unit itself. So going for a prolonged Castle Age with a cavalry or a unique unit based civ, generally speaking, is a little bit better. You get to take more control of the map, get some of the extra resources, go up on more vills, and then once you get to Imperial Age, you have a ton of resources available to spam your expensive unit and get all the necessary upgrades. Of course, this isn't like a golden rule that always works, but that's just standard general, I guess, pointers to go off of. Other factors to consider is whether you have the map control. If you've got the map control, generally speaking, a faster imp makes more sense, because if you're on defense and you want to go for a fast imp, you're very susceptible to your opponent just going all in castle and continuing to push you, and so usually that's not going to work too well. So if you're safe, you can decide what you want to do, but if you're under pressure and you don't have a lot of space, then generally speaking, you want to fight for that space back. Going up to imp doesn't really get you too much unless there's a castle you really need to treb or something like that. This big decision of whether to go up to Imperial Age or stay in Castle Age a little longer is one that you're going to have to make on your own depending on all kinds of factors for your own game. So I gave you some small pointers, but in general, trust your gut, weigh both options, and commit to one. But remember, whichever one you go for, really commit to it. Don't try to go for a faster imp and then randomly also try to claim the side golds, claim the middle of the map. It's not going to work out. You can't do both things at the same time. You're bound to get punished versus a smart opponent. And that's going to do it, guys, for Castle Age decision making and in general what to do after Feudal Age. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if this video gets 1,000 likes, I know you guys would have liked it, and I'll do a follow-up video, which is what to do after Castle Age to help you guys get to Imperial Age and how to win from there, pretty much how to close out any game. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.